Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and a continuing series, Model Museum, where I review every single Model 1, 2, and 3 arcade game ever made in a retrospective fashion that is not a racing game, because I did that retrospective last year. And today we have what is probably the most famous game on the Sega Model 1 in my opinion, and that is Star Wars Arcade. Of course, Virtual Fighter got its start on the Model 1. We also have Wing War, but this game is what I think most people are going to remember when they think Sega Model 1. Leave me a comment down below and tell me which game you think is most synonymous with it. But Star Wars the Arcade, or Star Wars Arcade, is just one of those quintessentially classic games. Now, I'm going to go into this telling you the following fact. Don't hate me for it, I'm just going to say it out loud. I have never been a huge Star Wars fan. The video games are fun, and I do love this one, but as far as the movies are concerned, I have seen them all. I think they're fine. It's just not for me. And that's totally fine. Not everyone has to love everything. If you're a huge Star Wars fan, you may love this game more than me just based upon the universe it inhabits. Why I love this game is it is just absolutely from start to finish a fast-paced, action-packed romp through the universe of Star Wars, and it gives you this great mechanic of the gameplay. Especially for the fact that this, compared to any other Model 1 arcade game, I think just looks the best out of anything Sega ever did. Now, I'm going to try to give you some soundtrack in about 4.5 minutes, but my guess is that it's going to 100% throw up a copyright flag, because actually doing videos on Star Wars games are impossible. But of course this has a great soundtrack because it's John Williams music just put into a video game. And I will say, more so than Virtual Fighter, I think the flat shaded polygons in the Star Wars universe being in space work much better than they do on Virtual Fighter. And because space is just a gigantic black expanse with a few things in it here and there, having that black background works contextually within the place that the game is set. Now, mechanically, it just basically guides you through some of the scenes of the film. In the first one, we just need to take down enemy fighters to a certain point in time until we can get to the Superstar Destroyer, and we need to destroy the reactor core. I love this stage here. Fighting against the other opponents, it is a ton of fun, but when we actually have this sort of trench run here where all of these TIE fighters are coming in, and if that is not what they're called, don't hate me, just tell me down below, while you're also navigating around trying to miss the walls and trying to shoot everything while keeping your shields up, it is just perfect gameplay. Now, I do play these via emulation, but I am using a flight stick with the appropriate buttons. This game is going to be so much more fun if you have that flight stick, because of course the original arcade cabinet was not just using a D-pad, and you shouldn't be either. But if you take something like an Xbox One controller, you can make the analog stick work for the most part for you. But if you have any access to any sort of flight stick, I can't recommend it enough. But again, just going through all of these turns, trying to stay off the wall, trying to lock on to your opponents and shoot them down, it is intense. And if you are good at this game, you can basically see the end of it within like 8 to 10 minutes. But it is a very difficult game, not only for the timer, but for the amount of shield you were given as well, so it is going to take some practice. But I remember the first time I saw an arcade cabinet for this, I absolutely fell in love. Even if I wasn't a huge Star Wars fan, I was a huge Sega fan, and this game had everything I needed from it. And you will see that we did get by that stage unscathed. So the first two stages with the shields, I was able to get through without having to use a single credit. Now that we're on to the next stage, though, it is going to get very difficult from there. The third stage always defeats me, whether it's on time or on that shield, but I love this little Starfield effect here with this kind of kaleidoscope effect. All of the artists at Sega that were making this game put every ounce of energy and art on screen to make this really look like an incredible experience. This is, in my opinion, still the prettiest Sega Model 1 game, and I do prefer this actually over the game on Model 3 in the Star Wars universe. It just has all of that vibe I'm going for. And you have the Death Star here. We're going into that trench run shortly, but you will see how many fighters we need to shoot down in this stage. It gives you 200 seconds, it gives you the shields, and you do not get to increase your shields between levels. You'll see Vader is down there as well. I do wish that you got a little bit of a shield bonus between levels, but of course Sega wanted you to put those quarters in, so you 100% have to. Now here's where I try to let you listen to the soundtrack for 45 seconds, so either enjoy it, or I'll come back and fill the dead space. Let's see. And that's 100% no on that one. There's absolutely nothing Star Wars related music-wise that you can have on YouTube that Disney is not going to rake you over the coals with. Even with all of the sound effects, it can still detect that little bit of music underneath it. It's just not anything I can let you listen to. But I'm highly assuming if you're watching a game about Star Wars, you can probably just hum the theme song or any of the music from the movie in your head. So go ahead and do that and just imagine what it would be like. You will see that I took my first death there, and I'm going to very quickly take my second death as well. This area just always destroys me. So what I'm going to do, and I don't do it often on the channels, I'm just going to throw some MAME cheats on and max out my shield so we can see more of what's going on in just a moment. But again, this game is just beautiful to me. I don't usually like flat shaded polygons, I definitely prefer textures on them. But Star Wars Arcade is the one game that I just think would look better in this methodology. I think if you texture these polygons, it wouldn't have the same visual charm, and I don't think it would hold up near as well as it does here. And the good thing about a game like this is it's still a pretty relatively common cabinet. You're not going to see one at every single arcade, but there's so many Star Wars fans and so many Sega fans that overlap means that a lot of these cabinets have been kept alive. And if you do want to find an arcade board, they're not cheap, but it's going to be something that you can probably find just with an eBay search. But of course, because this has Star Wars attached to it, it's going to be one of those things. The price is definitely going to be higher than other games in the same board. But just navigating around the ship, flying around here, dying, winning, dying again, it just works for me. Even if you're not playing the game well, you're still having so much fun doing it. And now I am cheating here. And I also appreciate that you have the behind the ship view as well as the cockpit view. Once you pull out of the cockpit view, you do get a better look at what's around you, and that can prove to be a benefit for you when you're trying to track down these enemy fighters, because they're tiny specks on a very big expanse of black, and it can be slightly difficult to see them. I wish maybe their colors had been amplified a little bit more so you could see what's going on. But you'll see I finally got that last fighter there. While cheating, of course, I fully admit to it, and we can move on to the next stage. But of course now we're trying to get into the reactor, and this is probably the most iconic scene from the entire game, and it's also the hardest because there's so much stuff to navigate around. Now, a while ago, I did a video on Solar Assault, a game made by Konami in the late 90s, and I feel like this has a very similar vibe. I'm not sure if Solar Assault was kind of trying to ape Star Wars Arcade, but I will leave a link in the description below because I do see some similarities. But this is when navigation is paramount. There are so many different obstacles to deal with. You can basically almost completely ignore trying to shoot the enemies in front of you because the environment's going to be your #1 enemy here. Hitting the wall is going to take away shield if you're not cheating, and very soon you're going to see the downside of cheating, or maybe it was a little bit of a MAME issue because I am emulating this via MAME. I do not own a Model 1 board for this one. Maybe one day I'll pick it up, but it's one of those things. Really enjoy the game. I'm just not the biggest Star Wars fan, so it's never been something that I had to buy on nostalgia alone. But this just feels so iconic. All of these grays and whites with just a little pop of color showing you what you need to avoid. The visual language teaching you how to play this game is some of the best Sega's ever done. Avoid the things that have color in them. They are going to be dangerous. The white and grays are pretty much going to be innocuous and safe. And just flying through this, again, it 100% works. Now, if you don't want to play the arcade original, this does exist on the Sega 32X, and it's actually an enhanced port, and that is a totally valid way to play. The only way to play Star Wars Arcade wrong is to not play it in the first place. And if you ever see an arcade cabinet, definitely throw your quarters in. You will see at this point in time that you can totally just jank yourself off the wall if you start playing poorly. It really does ricochet you around. This is the type of game that practice makes perfect. And if you played it, maybe 1 or 2 hours a day for a couple weeks, you could probably perfect it, get that 1cc state, and really just hammer down on the game, because it happens the exact same way, the exact same time. The course doesn't change whatsoever. It's always going to be the same. But you're going to see here, I run out of time, I shoot that laser off, and then everything is just going to freeze on me. I have absolutely no idea what happened, but that's as far as we are going to get. But Star Wars Arcade is just an icon of Sega's history. When this game came out, it was a massive hit. And I kind of wish Sega would kind of pop back to the Star Wars franchise. Now we have all these console games, and I'm sure they're fine. I haven't played any of them. Leave me a comment down below and tell me if you recommend me to play one, because I would be curious. But I'd love to see Sega make another Star Wars arcade game, maybe even in VR, because the games that they have made in the Star Wars universe are both 10 out of 10 amazing. Short of that, that is one of the 3 Model 1 games we'll have on this series, and very shortly we will be on to Sega Model 2. Hope you enjoyed the video. Leave me a comment down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.